I have here Adinkra stamps from the West African country of Ghana. These are beautiful stamps in themselves. They're carved carefully by craftsmen from calabash gourds. So they're very, very light, yet very rigid and strong. There's a simple wooden handle on the back made from very light twigs, and it's bound with string and cloth in behind. These stamps are traditionally worn by royalty, spiritual leaders for funerals, and other very special occasions. More commonly now, they're worn by people for style, who want to dress up, who want to look good for special events in their lives. But these are quite magnificent items in their own. This one is called Gawawu. It's the symbol for bravery or valor. This one, Neyame Dua, it means or stands for or signifies the altar of God. This lovely stamp is called Aban. Aban is the symbol of strength, the seat of power, authority, and magnificence. I really like this one. This is Osram ni Nosromra. It means faithfulness, and it contains a symbol for the moon and stars. These are functional objects, but they're very beautiful as well. You'll see with each of these, the stamp is a combination of a handle and a pad. The stamps that we make, well, they're not going to be made out of calabash gourds, but they will be made with a stamp handle and a pad. This is what I'm going to ask you to make as the very first project in this course. This beautiful fabric is Adinkra cloth. It's from Ghana in West Africa. It was woven by local weavers who sit at the side of the street and in little shops in villages and towns and big cities. Weaving is very popular. This cloth in particular is comprised of a number of squares. Each of those squares has a different design on it. The squares have all been sewn into one fabric. The designs have been adhered to the cloth with a stamp. The stamps used were calabash stamps, like those ones that we were looking at before. The colors are locally sourced. These beautiful colors are the result of boiling down plants and leaves and berries and producing these really gorgeous colors. Once the colors are achieved, they're mixed with tree gums and thickening agents that make it a little bit easier for them to be adhered to the stamp and the stamp applied to the fabric. This kind of fabric is very common. At once it was more likely that royalty, a king, a queen, wealthy merchants would wear this kind of fabric. But more and more, it's common for people of all social positions to wear bold, stylish fabric, such as this. This is one practical application of stamping. The first clay project that I'm going to ask you to work on is a small project. It's going to be 2 finished pieces that actually begin as 4 little pieces. I'm going to ask you to make texture stamps. Texture stamps will be fired in the kiln. They'll be permanent, and they'll demonstrate positive relief and negative relief. Remember, positive relief is everything that you can reach out with and touch with your finger. Negative relief is the result of scratching into a surface, removing material, digging away, a surface that actually sits below the main surface. So these stamps will require you to explore both positive and negative relief. The stamps that we make will be fired in the kiln, so they'll be permanent. Each stamp will be 2 pieces that will be joined together. and I want to talk to you about how you join clay together. There are two important terms that we're going to explore: score and slip. And here's how we'll apply them. If you think about your stamp, however you design your stamp, there's going to be a handle and a pad. They don't have to be exactly this shape, but they're going to look something like this. All right? We want to join the handle to the top side of the pad. And when they're connected, they will form a single piece of indestructible clay, almost indestructible. Here's what that looks like. If you have a stamp that looks like this, it's going to sit down on this pad. You'll have a flat surface that you can join to the pad itself. In order to make the strongest bond possible, we want to scratch this surface or score that surface with a sharp tool. You could use those skewers that I put in your kit, or you could scratch them with a small knife, a toothpick, whatever you have in your house. This surface is now many, many different surfaces. And those surfaces will bite onto the top of the pad that you create. So if the pad looks like this, then you want to roughen up that surface too, because again, you bring all of those little surfaces out, and that will create a stronger bond of hundreds of little surfaces. So this gets turned upside down on here. Before we put those pieces together, we're going to take some slip, which is applied there as well. Slip is watered down clay, the same clay that you're working with, but now it's diluted, it's creamier, almost like a milkshake. It's the adhesive that will hold those pieces together. So if this piece comes on here like that, it will sit in here and you'll bring these pieces together. Okay, so your stamp will look something like this. With your finger, you can blend that clay down, or you can take a little bit of clay and roll it with your hands and put it around the base. Okay, down here. If you apply your thumb all the way around the base, you'll make the strongest connection possible. So what you'll have is a stamp that looks something like this. This is the pad here, and this is the handle. They've been joined well through scoring and slipping. You may have even blended them in this way to make for the strongest bond possible. Okay. On the pad itself, you're going to begin to describe negative relief by scratching into it, or positive relief by building onto it. You can work the surfaces together at the same time. Each stamp should demonstrate positive or negative relief, and you should have examples of positive and negative relief on each stamp. Consider this though. If you press this down into the clay, it will make a relief mark. But this stamp also has other surfaces that you could create textures on, and when the clay is fired, you can use those surfaces to create a stamped negative or positive relief on your tile. The same thing happens here. That's actually another stamp pad. But this is what your stamps will look like. Some variation of those. We'll fire them in the kiln. They'll become permanent. You can test glazes and colors on the handles and pieces like that afterwards.